Alright, welcome to class, everyone. You should have already opened the warm-up question. So it says, give all names for this angle below. If you have not answered the question yet, go ahead, take a moment to pause it before getting the answer. Alright, when it says give all names, I want every single name you could think of. So here we have angle E, because we can name it by its vertex. We have angle AEP, because the vertex is in the middle. Angle AEH, vertex in the middle. Angle PEA, vertex in the middle. Angle HEA, vertex in the middle. Those are all of the different options. This was our number one most missed on the concept check, so make sure you study it, because on Wednesday we have a test coming up. Then you did get a new Delta Math today. It has the section of the notes we're about to do before our upcoming test, so make sure we're working on this. Today we're going to identify converse, inverse, and contrapositive of conditional statements. So make sure you have something to write with. You might need a calculator, probably not. You need your notes page, and you need your Chromebook to watch this video. Anytime during this video, if you have questions, either write them down, or I will have access to my computer. You can email me any questions that you may have. So, into the notes. Inverse, converse, and contrapositive. All of these are based on the conditional statement. Conditional is the original statement, whatever you start with. It is a statement written if hypothesis, then conclusion. Now, the if, so anything after the word if is the hypothesis P. Anything after the word then is the conclusion Q. Remember, it does not include if and then. It's only what comes after. Okay, only what comes after. So in this first example, it says underline the hypothesis once and the conclusion twice. If a quadrilateral has 4 right angles, then it is a square. So hypothesis is whatever is after the word if. So a quadrilateral has 4 right angles. Conclusion is whatever's after the word then. So it is a square. Now, TF, that stands for true, false. Is this a true statement or is this a false statement? If you can provide a counterexample, it is false. So here, if a quadrilateral has 4 right angles, then it is a square. This is false because we can provide a counterexample. Our counterexample is a rectangle. A rectangle also has 4 right angles. Okay, so that's the original statement. Everything we're about to do happens to this original. So next we have converse of a conditional. It is a statement formed by exchanging the hypothesis and conclusion of the conditional statement. Exchanging means we're going to flip. Okay, it's going to be if Q, Q is the conclusion, didn't mean to write that, then P. Okay, if Q, then P. So let me go back up to the conditional real quick. That is if P, then Q. If hypothesis, then conclusion. So this one, we write the conclusion first. So you still start with if. The conclusion of our sentence above is it is a square. Then we're going to put what the hypothesis was. A quadrilateral has 4 right angles? Okay, now we're going to determine if this is true or false. So if it is a square, then a quadrilateral has 4 right angles. Does a square have 4 right angles? This is true. Okay, remember, if you have any questions, write them down, email me and ask them. So let's practice writing the converse some more. Write the converse of the following. Identify the hypothesis and conclusion first. So if a person owns a dog, they are a pet owner. So I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier. Underline the hypothesis once, a person owns a dog, and then underline the conclusion twice. They are a pet owner. Is this statement true or is this statement false? This statement is true. So now we're going to write the converse. Converse means we are going to flip the hypothesis and conclusion. So if the conclusion goes first, they are a pet owner, then the hypothesis, a person owns a dog. Now we need to determine, is this true or is this false? Can you come up with a counter example? Okay, I can. If a person owns a cat, they would be a pet owner. So this statement would be false. All right, I want you to try number 2. So pause the video, try number 2. All right, welcome back. So if you live in Texas, then you live in Plano. Okay, we're going to underline the hypothesis once, the conclusion twice. Now, if we live in Texas, we could live in Plano, but we could also live in Dallas or McKinney, anywhere. So this statement would be false. But the whole point is to find the converse. So I'm going to flip the hypothesis and conclusion. So if you live in Plano, then you live in Texas. Is this statement true or false? This statement is true. All right, and our final one. If an object is fragile, then it is glass. We're going to underline our hypothesis once, our conclusion twice. So if an object is fragile, it is glass. There are many different types of fragile objects. There's ceramic, there's pottery, really anything could be fragile. So this statement will be false. But now I need to write the converse. So if you need your conclusion, it is glass, then your hypothesis, an object is fragile. All right, is this statement true or false? This statement is true. Glass is a fragile object. All right, if you have any questions about converse, go ahead and write them down now. Now we're going to move on to biconditional. Biconditional is special because it can only be written if both the conditional and the converse are true. Okay, both of those statements have to be true. We are going to drop the if and then, and we are going to use the phrase if and only if. And that's going to go between P and Q. So P, if and only if, Q. So the hypothesis, if and only if, the conclusion. So here is our conditional statement. If a triangle is a right triangle, then it contains one 90-degree angle. Is that statement true or false? This statement is true. So now I need to identify my hypothesis and my conclusion. Remember, hypothesis is after the word if, so a triangle is a right triangle. Conclusion is after the word then. It contains one 90-degree angle. So our conditional, that's the original. Now we need to write the converse. We need to flip it. So if the conclusion goes first, it contains one 90-degree angle, then our hypothesis. A triangle is a right triangle. Alright, so if it contains one 90-degree angle, a triangle is a right triangle. Is this statement true or is this statement false? This statement is also true. Now, both of these are true, which means we can write a biconditional. So the word if and the word then, those are going away. We are cutting those out. So we're going to start with a triangle is a right triangle. That's our hypothesis, remember? Now we're going to add in this phrase, if and only if. Then we're going to write our conclusion. We're not putting the word then. So it contains one 90-degree angle. So the word if and then, they're gone. And in between the hypothesis and conclusion, we put the phrase if and only if. All right, if you have any questions about biconditional, go ahead and write them down. All right, flip it over to the back side. Negation. It is finding the opposite of a given statement. So negation has a symbol. It looks like this. Kind of like a sideways L. Now here's what negation really means. You are adding or removing the word not. Okay, so negation, you are adding or removing the word not. So our statement number 5, it is hot outside. The negation, it is not hot outside. It isn't humid. Isn't means is not. So here we're removing the word not. So negation would be it is humid. Go ahead and try number 7. Add or remove the word not. All right, Dairy Queen blizzards are the best. So we're going to say Dairy Queen blizzards are not the best. Okay, we can't change the meaning, so we cannot say they are the worst. We can only add or remove the word not. Okay, if there's any questions about negation, please go ahead and write them down. All right, next one, we have inverse. It is a statement formed by negating the hypothesis and the conclusion. So inverse, it's called the not. You add the word not or remove the word not from the hypothesis and the conclusion. So it's if not P, so not the hypothesis, then not Q, not the conclusion. Okay? So we're going to write the inverse of each of these conditionals. If a person owns a dog, then they are a pet owner. So we're going to underline our hypothesis, anything after the word if. We're going to underline our conclusion twice, anything after the word then. So is this statement true or false? This statement is true. So let's do the inverse. If, now we're going to add the word not to our hypothesis. A person does not own a dog. Then we have to add the word not to the conclusion. They are not a pet owner. So if a person does not own a dog, then they are not a pet owner. Is this statement true or is this statement false? Remember, it is false if you find a counterexample. So in this case, if I do not own a dog, then I am not a pet owner. All right, number 9. If you live in Texas, then you live in Plano. We're going to underline the hypothesis once and the conclusion twice. So is this statement true or is this statement false? This statement is false. So if, we're going to do the inverse now, we're going to add the word not. You do not live in Texas. Then we're going to add the word not to the conclusion. You do not live in Plano. Is this statement true or is this statement false? This statement is true. All right, I want you to try number 10. So pause the video, try number 10. All right, so underline your hypothesis once, your conclusion twice. You should have said this statement is false. Now we're going to add the word not. If an object is not fragile, then it is not glass. All right, did you conclude this statement was true or false? This statement is true. If you have any questions about inverse, go ahead and write them down. All right, our last new word of the day, contrapositive. This is formed by negating and exchanging the hypothesis and conclusion. It says the conditional, so that's the original, and the contrapositive have the same truth value. So the little tip for contrapositive is you're going to add or remove the word not, and you're going to flip it. So it's like doing the inverse and the converse together. So we have our same 3 sentences. So we're going to underline our hypothesis and our conclusion. And we already know that this statement is true. So now we have to flip and put the word not. So let's go ahead and write our statement. It's if not Q, so not the conclusion, then not P, not the hypothesis. So if we have to add the word not to the conclusion, they are not a pet owner, then we have to add the word not to the hypothesis. So then a person does not own a dog. So if they are not a pet owner, then a person does not own a dog. Is this statement true or is this statement false? Remember, it should have the same truth value as the original, so this is true. All right, I want you to try number 12. All right, underline the hypothesis once, the conclusion twice. We have already determined this statement was false. So if we need to add the word not to the conclusion, you do not live in Plano. Then you do not live in Texas. Remember, the statement is false if you can find a counterexample. So if I do not live in Plano, could I live somewhere else that is also in Texas? Okay, there's many places I could live. I could live in Dallas or McKinney. So this statement is false. All right, and number 13. If an object is fragile, then it is glass. We've already concluded that this statement was false. So let's underline our hypothesis once, our conclusion twice. And then we're going to start with our if. Remember, it's if, not the conclusion. So if it is not glass, then we're going to add the word not to the hypothesis. So then an object is not fragile. Okay? So if it's not glass, which means it could be ceramic, it could be something, then it is not fragile. Okay, so if it's not glass, we have ceramic. Is ceramic fragile? Okay, that's a counterexample, which makes this statement false. Now, let's refresh our brain. The conditional statement and the contrapositive are going to have what type of truth values? They're going to have the same truth values. All right, if you have any questions over contrapositive, go ahead and write your questions now. For this next part, these pictures right here, I will go over these in class tomorrow because it's hard to explain without doing the actual hand movements. So the thumbs up, the thumbs down. So we will talk about those tomorrow. All right, now we do have a third page. So let's go ahead and go there. How do you know if you can write a biconditional? So I want you to take a moment, reference back in your notes, either the front or the back page that we just did. How do we know? All right, if you said the conditional and converse, okay, those are the two we look at, they have to have true statements. So conditional and converse have to be true. They both have to be true. All right. Now, number 14, that's going to be our last question together because that next section is your practice. So use the following conditional statement to write converse, biconditional if it's possible, inverse, and contrapositive. So remember, it gives you the original, which is the conditional. So if a polygon has 3 sides, then it is a triangle. Is that true or is it false? That statement is true. So now we're going to go in, we're going to identify our hypothesis and our conclusion. After the word if is the hypothesis. After the word then is our conclusion. So a polygon has 3 sides. That's the hypothesis. It is a triangle is the conclusion. So converse means flip. We're going to flip the hypothesis and conclusion. So if it is a triangle, then a polygon has 3 sides. All right, is this statement true or false? This statement is also true. So, can we write a biconditional? Are the conditional and converse both true statements? If you said yes, perfect. Biconditional is we put the word if and only if in between hypothesis and conclusion. Now, it is based on the conditional statement. So we're cutting out the first if. We start with a polygon has 3 sides. We're going to insert if and only if. We're going to cut out the word then, and we're going to write our conclusion. It is a triangle. Now, biconditionals, they technically should not have a truth value, so just mark that out. All right, next we have inverse. Inverse is the not. You add or remove the word not. So we're going to start. If a polygon does not have 3 sides, then we're going to add the word not. It is not a triangle. Is this statement true or false? This statement is true. All right, and our last one, contrapositive. Remember, contrapositive has 2 steps. You not and you flip. Okay, so the conclusion's gonna go first. Hypothesis will go second. So if we're going to put the word not in the conclusion. It is not a triangle. Then we're going to add the word not to the hypothesis. A polygon does not have 3 sides. All right, is this statement true or false? This statement is true because our conditional statement is true, and contrapositive, they have the same truth value. All right, so this is our last question of the notes together, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions left to do on your own. So go ahead, finish up those 4 questions, and then you do have an additional piece back in Google Classroom. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.